Hello my dear friends, and welcome back to another video. So today we have a few updates, mainly to do with the Andor series, so let's dive straight into it. Now just before we talk about Cassian, we begin with something truly remarkable. According to a screenshot for the Disney Plus November schedule, the Italian version, but this applies internationally, on November the 12th, which will mark the Mandalorian's 3-year anniversary, a Grogu short film is going to be released. It's called Grogu and the Dust Bunnies. Now given that it's labelled as Star Wars Zen, it might just be a soundscape meditation, that kind of short. But if you think back to January, there was a wild rumour that a short animated Grogu film would be released later in the year, with the aim of giving us more of his backstory in preparation for season 3. Now while this information might be a stretch, they certainly got the Grogu short film prediction spot on. Let's wait and see what this ends up being. It might just be another Star Wars biomes type of thing, but if we're lucky, it might be a legit story. But the announcement for this is that Grogu and the Dust Bunnies comes to Disney Plus on November 12th. Now let's talk about the Andor series because we do have quite a lot. So we begin with a new report from galactictransmission.com. They claim that Adria Arjona, who plays Bix in the Andor series, has signed up for more Star Wars after the show's over. A few months back, as reported by Bespin Bulletin, she inadvertently confirmed, and massive spoiler warning, that Bix does not die in season 1, and that she's already spoken with Tony Gilroy about the role she's going to play in season 2, which goes into production this month. Well, in this brand new report, which I think originates with Daniel Richman, there are now talks at Lucasfilm concerning a big spin-off series after Andor is finished. And given the expanding world of what started with Rogue One, what I like to call the Rogue One universe, we've got to wonder if Bix is not the only one, and if the likes of Saw Gerrera and Mon Mothma are also going to get spin-offs. Now there was a Saw Gerrera show rumour about a year ago, but that seems to have died down. Now before we go any further guys, I will flat out say that while Adria signing up for more Star Wars content is probably true, I just simply don't believe we're getting a Bix show. It's just not in Lucasfilm's best interest. I think this part of the rumour is just someone's wild conjecture and fan speculation, rather than it holding any substance. Now I wanted a second opinion on this, so I reached out to MakingStarWars.net, and Jason told me it's probably complete BS, but more stories in the future with Bix, and other characters who make it out alive in this show, and even beyond the point of Rogue One, would be more than welcome. And this brings us on to Mon Mothma. If Adria Arjona is getting more Star Wars stories, there's no way they didn't offer the same thing to Genevieve O'Reilly as Mon Mothma. She's been killing it in this show, and I'm just so happy for her considering her scenes were left out of the final cut of Revenge of the Sith. Now I must say she's ridiculously talented, and more Mon Mothma in future stories makes a lot of sense in the timeline, as in canon she lives well into the New Republic era, and I was just thinking about this earlier, and it dawned on me that she could very much appear in The Mandalorian or an upcoming spin-off. After all, she's a crucial part of the New Republic before the rise of the First Order, and with Jon Favreau promising to give context to the years before The Force Awakens, a Mando spin-off or future season of The Mandalorian could absolutely provide more Genevieve O'Reilly as Mon Mothma. All they would have to do is age her up a bit with makeup to make her more in line with Caroline Blakeston's portrayal in Return of the Jedi, because that's where we're closest to in the timeline in The Mandalorian, the years following episode 6, and over the next few years as The Mandalorian expands with Skeleton Crew, if Rangers is unshelved and other potential spin-offs, we're going to get closer to The Force Awakens. There is so much time between sagas, like 20 years or so, and so many stories to be told. Now for all intents and purposes, although a more minor one, Mon Mothma is a legacy character, and in the Disney Star Wars era, apart from Star Wars Rebels, Rogue One, and now Andor, she's had a bit of her later story told in novels like Bloodline and post-Return of the Jedi comics, such as Shattered Empire too. But let's see it on screen, because although she's a hero and leader of the rebellion, it was in part her poor management and incompetence that led to the fall of the New Republic and the rise of the First Order. Mon Mothma's drive for ensuring peace and demilitarization eventually left the New Republic in a weakened state of unpreparedness, one that lacked the strength to combat the rise of the First Order. The irony being that years earlier, as we're probably going to see in Andor Season 2, but that we also see in Rogue One and Star Wars Rebels, Saw Gerrera warned her about what would happen if you don't use solid military strategy in the face of oppression. Mon Mothma later retired in shame, but as I say, there are years between the Empire's fall post-Episode 6 and the sequel trilogy that can explore her character further in Mando, and show us a human side to the tragedy that is the fate of the New Republic. Leia Organa could also play into this in a big way if they recast or get Billy Lord to recreate Princess Leia using a deepfake algorithm. The now shelved Rangers of the New Republic would have been the ideal place for all of this. And here is a wild fan theory I'm just going to throw out there. What if Mon's daughter, Leader, survives the Andor show and one day becomes an officer of the First Order? What if a villainous evil arc awaits her? That would be quite a twist, but a poetic Star Warsy one. In Star Wars Legends, on the other hand, according to the Dark Empire sourcebook, after Granddaddy Palps' death in Return of the Jedi, Leader sympathized with the rebels and was later in convalescence on New Alderaan. In 17 ABY, she returned to Coruscant to be with her mother before Mon Mothma's death. But that's just a story in the expanded universe, Star Wars Legends. Maybe later on she'll be an Imperial sympathizer, maybe even one who knows Moff Gideon. Let's wait and see, just a wild fan theory. And so now, my dear friends, we're going to be talking about Rogue One, a Star Wars story, because some new information has emerged about reshoots and what saved the first Star Wars spin-off. Without Rogue One, we wouldn't have the Andor series, so much of the high-quality Disney Star Wars content wouldn't exist. Let's dive into it. Rogue One, a Star Wars story may be the best Star Wars film under Disney, but did you know that its acclaim is largely due to changes by the Gilroys? When John Gilroy was recently asked by The Playlist as to whether he and his brother Tony were changing things during Rogue One's reshoots, or just making adjustments, John confessed, quote, "They were really changing things." Here is what he said: "I don't know how much I'm supposed to say about it. It was really changing things and using all the tricks in your bag as an editor to make things work. However you need to make them work, you make them work." He then goes on to explain the extent of those changes. As I've spoken about in the past, guys, the first script of Rogue One was very different. The ending was different. Both Jyn and Cassian survived that film, but not in the final version. Let's see what he said. "It was actually, the basic plan was very simple. They had the movie they had, and they called Tony in, and Tony huddled for a while with another editor, Colin Gowdy, and used a lot of the things that he discovered when we were working together, and just basically made a new story. It was quite a different story, and then convinced Disney to invest in that story, and that was a sizable investment in time and money, and then it was just realizing what it was. So it was a new plan. You're not just going in experimenting, no, we had a proper new blueprint." As to how John Gilroy approached tackling a new story when there was already an original, this is what he said: "And so we went in and just did what we did, and I had a blueprint. I didn't pay much attention to the other film, except when it's taking a scene and totally retasking things in that scene. And if I were to get into a pickle with something, I would just mock a line in, an abridged line or whatever I have to do, and then later on it's codified, and then we get the actor to do it. So there's a lot of rewriting that goes into the cutting room if you need to. It's not really something you want to be doing, but if everybody wrote great scripts and executed them perfectly, then there'd be no need for that. But things happen, and that's another elevated level to change the trajectory of a story or film, and that's something that people do." And what's really interesting is that he then goes on to hint that what they couldn't do for Rogue One, they're now executing in the Andor show. In other words, things you can't do on the big screen, you can do on a television series. But until Kathleen Kennedy gave them the call, they never thought they'd see the day. And the Andor series is absolutely phenomenal. Episode 9 was amazing. Go and check out my review and breakdown yesterday if you've not done so already. So some really interesting comments here. And so finally, my dear friends, as many of you know, I'm a massive Funko Pop fan, and now they're releasing more Funkos for the Book of Boba Fett. I love the look of some of these, they're awesome. We've got Grogu calming down and taming Boba's Rancor, a Book of Boba Fett version of Cad Bane, Luke Skywalker training Grogu with Grogu on his back, Grogu holding the little knob from the Razor Crest, Black Chrysanthemum. They've got the unnamed Twi'lek Major Domo of Mea Mok Shaiz, and of course Boba and Fennec. Really awesome stuff. I don't usually talk about Funkos in news updates, but these ones were so cool I couldn't help but talk about them. After all, Star Wars and Star Wars fandom is all about passion. So share your thoughts in the comments down below, guys, of everything we spoke about in this video. Would you like to see more Bics in the future? Maybe Saw Gerrera, Mon Mothma? More stories that come out of characters from the Andor series? If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to give me a big fat thumbs up, subscribe if you're new, and if you want more videos not found here on YouTube, including live streams, podcasts, Star Wars Explained videos, I've got literally over 150 of them, consider clicking the link down in the description, or click the join button down below. But I appreciate you all for watching this video. Thank you all so much. But until the next one, my dear friends, may the Force be with you always.